Captain Jai-Ho Park stood at the main window of the Dawn Seeker, watching the stars drift by. His ship was the newest and best in the Confederation's research fleet. It could travel faster, scan deeper, and see further than any ship before it. But right now, it wasn't allowed to go where he wanted it to go. "Captain, we're approaching the outer edge of the quarantine zone," said his navigator. The young officer's voice was steady, but Jai-Ho could hear the question in it. They all had questions. Jai-Ho looked at the glowing map in front of him. The Sol system was marked in red, forbidden space. Around it was a huge empty circle that no Confederation ship could enter. It made no sense. Humans weren't dangerous. They hadn't even left their own solar system yet. "Stop here," Jai-Ho ordered. The Dawn Seeker slowed to a halt at the edge of the zone. From here, they could see Earth's sun, a small, ordinary star among millions. But for some reason, this ordinary star and its third planet scared the most powerful civilization in known space. Jai-Ho touched the screen on his arm. A message appeared in the air. "Call Admiral Yunki." He waited as the connection went through. The Admiral's face appeared, looking tired. "Captain Park, I expected your call 3 days ago." "Sir, I don't understand these orders," Jai-Ho said. "We're the most advanced species we know of. The humans are centuries behind us. Why can't we study them up close?" Admiral Yunki was quiet for a moment. He looked down at something on his desk. "Captain, what do you know about the deep ocean?" Jai-Ho blinked at the strange question. "Sir, Earth's oceans. What do you know about them?" "They cover most of the planet. They're very deep in places. The humans have only explored a small part of them." Jai-Ho wasn't sure where this was going. "Yes," said the Admiral. "And why do you think that is?" "Their technology isn't good enough yet," Jai-Ho answered. But as he said it, he felt less sure. The humans had sent robots to the bottom of their oceans. They had maps. They had submarines, but they never stayed long in the deep places. They never built cities under the water, even though they could. The Admiral smiled, but his eyes were serious. "We're not the first ones to find Earth, Captain Park, and we're not the only ones watching it." Jai-Ho felt a chill. "What do you mean, sir? Are other species studying Earth too?" "No, Captain. They're all staying away, just like us." The Admiral picked up something from his desk. "An old data chip. I'm sending you some files. They're classified. Watch them alone." The chip's data appeared in Jai-Ho's system. The files were very old, hundreds of years old. "One more thing, Captain," said the Admiral. "If you see anything unusual in Earth's oceans while you're at the edge of the zone, anything at all, leave immediately. Don't stop to study it. Don't try to scan it. Just go." "What should I be looking for?" Jai-Ho asked. "Movement," said the Admiral. "Movement where there shouldn't be any. And shadows that are too big to be whales." The screen went dark. Jai-Ho stood alone in his room later, watching the files. They were recordings from the first Confederation probe that visited Earth's solar system. The probe had gone closer than anyone was allowed to now. It had scanned the oceans. The recording showed something moving in the deep water, something huge. The probe's computer said it was bigger than any living thing could be. Then the recording stopped suddenly. Jai-Ho checked the probe's data. It had been destroyed right after sending this recording. No one knew how. He walked back to the bridge of his ship. Earth's sun was still visible, peaceful, and bright. But now when he looked at it, he wondered what was hiding in the darkness under its ocean's waves. What were they all so afraid of? And why did it choose Earth as its home? "Orders, Captain?" asked his navigator. Jai-Ho kept staring at the distant star. The Admiral's warning echoed in his mind, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. "Move us a little closer," he said. "Just a little. I want better scans of their oceans." As the Dawn Seeker crept forward, Jai-Ho wondered if he was making a huge mistake. But he had to know. What was down there in Earth's oceans? What was so powerful that even the Confederation, The most advanced civilization in known space wouldn't go near it. He was about to find out, whether he wanted to or not. Research Director He Jin sat in the dark archives room, surrounded by old data chips and screens. She had been here for 12 hours, looking through files that no one had touched in centuries. Her eyes were tired, but she couldn't stop, not after what she had found. The screen in front of her showed an old recording from Earth. It was taken by a probe that vanished 300 years ago. The image was grainy and dark, showing deep ocean water. But there was something moving in that darkness, something impossible. He Jin played the recording again. She watched as a shadow moved across the screen. The probe's measurements showed it was bigger than any living thing should be, bigger than the biggest whale, bigger than anything known to science. "Computer, calculate the size of the moving object," she said. Numbers appeared on the screen. He Jin's hands started shaking. The thing in the recording was over 2 kilometers long. That wasn't possible. Nothing alive could be that big. But it was alive. The way it moved proved that. It wasn't a submarine or a ship. It moved like a living creature, smooth and purposeful. He Jin found more recordings. Different probes, different years, all showing the same thing. Huge shapes moving through Earth's oceans. The humans never saw them. Their sensors didn't pick them up, but the Confederation's advanced technology could see them clearly. "Director He Jin," a voice called from the doorway. "You've been here all night." She looked up. It was her assistant, carrying a cup of hot drink. "Come look at this," she said. The assistant walked over and looked at the screen. His face went pale. "What is that?" "I don't know," He Jin said, "but I know why it's important. Computer, show me the list of missing probes." A new screen appeared. It showed all the probes the Confederation had lost near Earth. There were hundreds of them, all destroyed after getting too close to these things in the ocean. "Look at the dates," He Jin said. "Every time we sent a probe too close, it vanished. But the human ships and submarines were never touched. These things, whatever they are, they only attack our technology." "But why?" the assistant asked. He Jin opened another file. This one was very old, from the early days of space exploration. It showed a map of the galaxy, with red marks showing dead civilizations, ancient species that had vanished long ago. "See this?" She pointed to the marks. All these civilizations left warnings. They all said the same thing: stay away from the dark places, stay away from the deep waters. She looked at the image of Earth's oceans. "I think we know why now." A message appeared on her screen. It was from Captain Jeho Park of the Dawn Seeker. He was at the edge of Earth's quarantine zone. He wanted to know why the zone existed. He Jin looked at the recordings again. She thought about those huge shapes moving in the darkness. Should she tell him what she had found? Would it stop him from going closer, or would it make him more curious? She started typing a message back. The captain needed to know. But as she wrote, her computer suddenly stopped working. All the screens went dark. In the silence, He Jin heard something. A low sound, like a deep humming. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The screens came back on, but now they all showed the same thing. That first recording of the huge shape moving through Earth's oceans. He Jin hadn't played this file. She hadn't opened it. The shape on the screen moved differently this time. It turned toward the probe's camera. For the first time in 300 years, someone saw what it really looked like. He Jin's assistant screamed. She couldn't blame him. What they saw in that moment changed everything they thought they knew about life in the universe. The screens went dark again. When they came back on, all the files were gone. 300 years of data, erased in a second. But He Jin didn't need the files anymore. She would never forget what she had seen. Now she knew why the Confederation stayed away from Earth. She knew why even the most advanced species in the universe was afraid. Something lived in Earth's oceans, something old, something that had been there long before humans evolved, something that was still there, watching and waiting. And now it knew they were watching back. Yuri sat at her desk in the Deep Space Monitoring Station, staring at her screens. For 3 days straight, she had watched the same data patterns repeat. Something was wrong with Earth's oceans, but nobody else seemed to notice. "Look at this," she said to herself, drawing lines on the screen. The ocean currents were moving in ways that didn't make sense. They made shapes, perfect circles and straight lines that nature couldn't make. Her computer beeped. Another pattern appeared. This time, it was in the Pacific Ocean. A huge circle of water moving against the natural currents, like something big was moving down there. Yuri needed help understanding what she was seeing. She called Dr. Tadwan, her old teacher and mentor. He answered right away. "Dr. Tadwan, can you come to my station? I found something strange in Earth's oceans." There was a long silence. Then Dr. Tadwan said, "Don't show anyone else. I'll be there in an hour." Yuri waited, watching more patterns appear and disappear. When Dr. Tadwan arrived, he looked worried. She had never seen him worried before. "Show me," he said. Yuri played the recordings. The patterns appeared one by one. Circles, lines, and shapes that shouldn't exist in nature. Dr. Tadwan's face got paler with each new pattern. "How long have you been watching this?" he asked. 3 days, Yuri said, "but the computer says these patterns have been happening for years." Nobody reported them. Dr. Tadwan sat down heavily in a chair. "That's because we were told not to report them. The Confederation has known about these patterns for centuries." Yuri stared at him. "What? Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because knowing about them is dangerous," he said. He pulled out an old data chip. "Watch this. It's from 200 years ago." The screen showed the same patterns Yuri had found. But this recording showed something else too. Huge dark shapes moving under the water, making the patterns with their movement. "What are they?" Yuri whispered. "We don't know," Dr. Tadwan said. "But they're intelligent. Look at the patterns. They're not random. They're talking to each other." Yuri looked closer at the patterns. Her teacher was right. The shapes and movements were like a language. The beings in the ocean were communicating. "But why can't humans see them?" she asked. "They don't want to be seen," Dr. Tadwan said. "Their technology is far beyond ours. They can hide from human sensors, but they can't hide from our advanced scanners." A new pattern appeared on the screen. This one was different. The circles were bigger, and they were spreading out from a central point. "That's new," Dr. Tadwan said, leaning forward. "I've never seen this pattern before." Yuri checked the location. "It's near where Captain Park's ship is waiting." Dr. Tadwan stood up quickly. "We need to warn him. These beings don't like being watched. The patterns are getting bigger because they know we're looking at them." But before they could send a message, all their screens went dark. When they came back on, every screen showed the same thing. A huge eye, looking right at them through the darkness of the ocean. Yuri couldn't move. The eye was bigger than any eye should be. It looked ancient and intelligent, and it was definitely watching them. "Don't move," Dr. Tadwan whispered. "Don't do anything." The eye stayed on their screens for a long minute. Then it blinked once, slowly, and disappeared. The screens went back to normal. Yuri's hands were shaking. "What do we do now?" "Now," Dr. Tadwan said quietly. "Now we know why the Confederation stays away from Earth. We're not dealing with simple sea creatures. We're dealing with something that's been watching us, studying us, for longer than we've been in space." "But what do they want?" Yuri asked. Dr. Tadwan looked at the screens, where the patterns were still moving. "That's what scares me the most," he said. "They've been on Earth longer than humans have. The real question is, why do they let humans stay?" "We're going to get in big trouble for this," Jai-Ho said, but he was already starting the ship's engines. The Dawn Seeker hummed to life, its lights glowing in the darkness of space. Yuri stood next to him, checking her datapad. We have to know the truth, she said. Those patterns in the ocean, they're getting bigger every day. They had turned off their ship's tracking system. No one in the Confederation knew they were heading toward Earth. Breaking the quarantine zone was the biggest crime a captain could commit, but Jeho couldn't stay away. Not after what Yuri had shown him. The Dawn Seeker moved slowly through space, getting closer to the blue planet. Earth looked peaceful from up here. No one would guess what was hiding in its oceans. How close should we get? Jeho asked. Close enough to scan the deep ocean, Yuri said. But not too close. We don't want to wake them up. Jeho looked at her. Wake what up? The things down there. Dr. Tadwan thinks they're sleeping most of the time. That's why the patterns are usually small. But sometimes, when our ships get too close, she didn't finish her sentence. The ship's computer beeped. They were now close enough to scan Earth's oceans properly. Jeho started the scan, his hands shaking a little. The first images appeared on their screen. The Pacific Ocean was full of movement. Huge shapes moved slowly through the deep water. The computer tried to measure them, but the numbers made no sense. These things were too big to be alive. But they were definitely alive. Look at this one, Yuri said, pointing to a shape that was moving differently from the others. It was coming up from the very bottom of the ocean, where the water was darkest. Jeho zoomed in the camera. The shape became clearer. It wasn't just one creature, it was many creatures, all connected together. They moved like they shared one mind. They're ancient, Yuri whispered. Look at the way they're built. No species we know could evolve like this. They must be from before. Before what? Before everything. Before life on Earth started. She touched the screen, tracing the shape of one creature. They didn't come to Earth. They were here first. The ship's alarm started beeping. Something was happening in the ocean below them. The patterns are changing, Jeho said, watching the screens. The creatures were moving faster now, making new shapes in the water. What are they doing? They know we're here, Yuri said. Her voice was scared. They can sense our ship. The patterns in the ocean got bigger and faster. The creatures were definitely reacting to something. Circles and lines appeared in the water, like giant symbols being drawn by invisible hands. We should leave, Jeho said. But he didn't move. He couldn't stop watching. Then something new appeared on their screen. One of the creatures had turned to face upward. For the first time, they could see what it really looked like. Jeho and Yuri stood in silence, staring at the image. The creature was like nothing they had ever seen before. It had parts that looked mechanical, but they were grown, not built. Its body seemed to bend space around it. It's not just alive, Yuri said slowly. It's awake. And it's looking right at us. The creature's eye was bigger than their whole ship. It watched them through miles of ocean water, seeing them as clearly as if they were right in front of it. Then it moved. Start the engines, Yuri said urgently. We need to leave. Now. But before Jeho could move, all their screens went dark. When they came back on, every screen showed the same thing. A message in perfect Confederation language. You were told to stay away. Now you will learn why. The Dawn Seeker's engines stopped working. They started falling toward Earth's atmosphere, pulled down by something stronger than gravity. The last thing Jeho saw before their screens went dark again was the ocean opening up below them, like a giant mouth ready to swallow their ship whole. They had wanted to learn the truth about what lived in Earth's oceans. Now they were about to find out, whether they wanted to or not. The Dawn Seeker fell through Earth's atmosphere like a stone. Jeho tried every control, but nothing worked. Their ship was being pulled down by something much stronger than them. Look, Yuri pointed at their screens. The ocean below was moving strangely. Giant circles of water spun like whirlpools, but they were too perfect to be natural. The ancient beings were making them. They're going to kill us, Jeho said quietly. But the ship didn't crash. Instead, It slowed down and stopped just above the water. They hung there, floating in the air, while the ocean moved beneath them. Back at the Confederation's main station, Dr. Todd One was watching his screens in horror. The patterns in Earth's oceans were bigger than ever before. The ancient beings weren't just moving. They were waking up. "Send a message to Admiral Yunki," he told his assistant. "Tell him it's happening. The thing we feared for centuries is finally happening." The Admiral was already watching. Every screen in the Confederation's command center showed the same thing. Earth's oceans were coming alive. Deep under the Pacific Ocean, the largest of the ancient beings slowly lifted itself from the seafloor. It had been sleeping there for millions of years. Now it was awake, and it was angry. The being was bigger than any living thing should be. Its body was like a city that could move and think. Parts of it looked like metal, but they were grown, not built. It had technology that was part of its body, machines that were alive. As it rose, other beings woke up too. They came from all of Earth's oceans, the Atlantic, the Indian, the Arctic. They had been hiding in the deep places, sleeping and waiting. Now they were all awake. Humans on Earth started noticing strange things. Their weather satellites stopped working. The ocean temperatures changed in ways that made no sense. Giant waves appeared from nowhere, but they didn't crash on the shores. They just moved in perfect circles, like something was controlling them. The Dawn Seeker still hung in the air above the Pacific Ocean. Jiho and Yuri watched as a huge shape rose from the water below them. It was one of the ancient beings, coming up to look at them. The being lifted part of itself out of the water. It was like a mountain made of living metal and strange flesh. Its eye was as big as their ship, glowing with a light that seemed to come from the beginning of time. Then they heard its voice. It didn't speak through sound. It spoke directly into their minds. "You were warned," it said. Its thoughts were so powerful that Jiho and Yuri felt their heads hurt. "This place was marked as forbidden. We left signs that even your simple minds could understand." "We're sorry," Yuri tried to say. "We didn't know." "You knew," the being interrupted. "Your people have watched us for centuries. You saw us sleeping. You saw our power, but you still came closer." Dr. Tawan was receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Other civilizations were seeing what was happening on Earth. They were all scared. Many of them had legends about the ancient beings, stories about things that lived in deep waters and could destroy whole worlds. The being lifted their ship higher with its strange power. Now they could see more of the ocean, where other beings were rising to the surface. Each one was different, but they were all huge and impossible and beautiful in a terrifying way. "Now you will learn," the being said to Jiho and Yuri. "You will learn why we chose this world, why we protect it, and why your people were right to stay away." The ocean began to glow with a strange light. The ancient beings were doing something, using powers that even the Confederation couldn't understand. They were about to show everyone why they were the true masters of Earth's oceans. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something else noticed that the ancient guardians of Earth were finally awake. Something that had been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. Hajin worked quickly in the archives room, reading through data from dead civilizations. The ancient beings were awake now, and she needed answers fast. Each old file told part of a story that was both wonderful and scary. "Look at this," she said to her assistant. "These beings didn't come to Earth by accident. They chose it. They've been protecting it for millions of years." On her screen was a very old message from a species that died out long ago. It showed pictures of the ancient beings fighting something in space, something dark and horrible that tried to eat whole planets. More screens lit up around her. Each one showed a different time when the ancient beings had saved Earth from danger. They had stopped asteroids, pushed away deadly radiation, and fought off things that wanted to hurt the planet. Meanwhile, the Dawn Seeker was still floating above the Pacific Ocean. Jiho and Yuri watched as more of the ancient beings rose from the water. But they weren't attacking. They were showing themselves on purpose. "We are the Guardians," the largest beings said in their minds. "We were here before your kind learned to walk. We will be here long after your cities turn to dust." "Why?" Yuri asked. "Why protect Earth?" The being's huge eye turned to look at her. Its thoughts became gentler, like it was trying not to hurt their minds. "Because it is special," it said. "This world sits at a crossing point between realities. Dark things want it. Hungry things. We keep them away." Jaiho thought about all the strange stories humans told about the ocean. Stories about giant sea monsters and mysterious lights. "The humans," he said. "Have they ever seen you?" "Sometimes," the being said. "When we have to fight close to the surface, they see us and make stories about us. But we hide most of the time. Humans are young. They need time to grow." Back in the archives, Ho Jin found something that made her hands shake. It was a map showing all the places in space where dark things tried to break through into our world. Earth had more attack points around it than any other planet. "They're not just hiding in Earth's oceans," she told her assistant. "They're guarding the weakest points in space. Earth is like a door that needs to stay closed." Suddenly, all her screens went dark. When they came back on, they showed something new. A huge dark shape was moving through space, heading toward Earth. It looked like a hole in reality. In the Pacific Ocean, the ancient beings saw it too. They started moving faster, making patterns in the water that glowed with strange light. They were getting ready for something. "What is that?" Jaiho asked, seeing the dark shape on their ship's screens. "The reason we are here," the Guardian said. Its voice was harder now, ready for battle. "Watch and understand why we chose this world as our home." The dark shape got closer to Earth. It was bigger than anything Jaiho had ever seen. But the ancient beings didn't seem scared. They had fought things like this before. The largest Guardian lifted itself further out of the water. Now they could see all of it. Its body was like a mountain made of living metal and light. Parts of it opened up, showing weapons that looked like they were made from stars. "You wanted to know our secret," it told Jaiho and Yurei. "Now you will see it. We are not here to harm humanity. We are here to make sure humanity has a chance to grow up." The dark shape reached Earth's orbit. The ancient beings started to glow with bright light. They were about to show everyone why even the most advanced species in the universe stayed away from Earth. They were about to show why they were called the Guardians. All around Earth, humans were panicking. Their weather satellites showed impossible things happening in the oceans. Giant waves moved in perfect circles. Deep water temperatures changed in ways that broke the laws of physics. And now something huge and dark was coming from space. In the Dawn Seeker, floating above the Pacific Ocean, Jaiho and Yurei had to make a hard choice. "We have to warn them," Yuri said, looking at the news from Earth on their screens. "The humans don't know what's coming. They're scared." Jaiho shook his head. "The Confederation's biggest law says we can't talk to them. If we do, we'll go to prison forever." The largest Guardian, still floating half out of the water near their ship, spoke in their minds again. "You worry about small things while great danger comes." The dark shape in space was getting closer. It was like a hole in the universe, eating light as it moved. The Guardians were spreading out around Earth, getting ready to fight it. "What will happen to the humans when you fight?" Jaiho asked the Guardian. "Will they be safe?" "We will try to protect them," the Guardian said. "But they may see things they are not ready to see. Knowledge can be dangerous." On Earth, people were uploading videos of the ocean to the internet. Some showed huge shapes moving under the water. Others caught flashes of light deep in the sea. The whole world was watching. In the Confederation's command center, Admiral Yumki got an urgent message from Heijin. She had found something important in the archives. "The Guardians don't just fight physical things," she wrote. "They protect Earth from knowledge that could break human minds. If humans see them fight, it might change everything humans believe about the universe." The Admiral looked at his screens. The dark shape was almost at Earth now. The Guardians would have to fight it where everyone could see. Back on the Dawn Seeker, Yuri made her decision. She started typing a warning message to Earth. "What are you doing?" Jaho asked, scared. "Saving lives," she said. "The humans need to know what's coming. They need to hide." The Guardian watched them with its huge eye. "You choose to break your laws to help them." "Yes," Yuri said. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was strong. "Good," the Guardian said. "You learn. Sometimes protection means breaking rules." Suddenly, all their screens showed the same thing. The dark shape had reached Earth's orbit. It was opening up, showing what was inside. What they saw made them understand why the Guardians were needed. The thing from space was alive, but not like anything they knew. It was made of darkness older than stars, and it was hungry. "Now you must choose," the Guardian said to Jaho and Yurei. "Send your warning, and change humanity forever, or stay quiet, and watch what happens." Jaho looked at Yurei. She was still typing the warning. He thought about all the humans below who didn't know what was coming. Then he made his choice. He pressed the button to send Yuri's message. All over Earth, phones and computers got the same message. It was simple but clear. "Go inside. Don't look at the sky or the ocean. Something is coming. The Earth's Guardians will protect us, but we must not watch." The Guardian's eye glowed brighter. "You chose wisdom over rules. Now watch what we do to protect your young friends." The ocean began to shine with bright light. The Guardians were powering up their ancient weapons. They were about to show why they were the most powerful beings in the known universe. Above them, the dark thing from space made a sound that no one was meant to hear. The fight for Earth was about to begin. John walked into the dark forest. The trees were tall and the shadows were long. He felt scared, but he kept going. He needed to find the magic ring. Only the ring could save his village from the evil wizard. As John went deeper into the forest, he heard strange noises. Twigs snapped under his feet. Leaves rustled in the wind. An owl hooted in a tree. John wanted to run back home where it was safe and warm, but he told himself to be brave. Suddenly, there was a bright light up ahead. John walked toward it, his heart beating fast. In a small clearing, he saw an old woman sitting by a fire. She looked up at him and smiled. Her eyes twinkled in the firelight. "Hello, young man," she said. "What brings you into these dark woods at night?" John gulped and stepped forward. "I'm looking for a magic ring," he said. "Do you know where I can find it?" The old woman studied his face. She nodded slowly. "Yes, I know of this ring. It is very powerful. It can grant any wish, but it is also very dangerous if used for evil. Are you sure you want it?" John thought of his village and all the people counting on him. "Yes," he said firmly. "I need it to save my people. The evil wizard is going to destroy us if I don't stop him. Please, tell me where I can find the ring." The old woman poked at the burning logs with a stick. Sparks flew up into the night sky. She sighed heavily. "Very well," she said, "but heed my warning. The ring will tempt you to do bad things. You must be strong. You must use it only for good. Never let the ring control you." "I promise I'll only use it for good," John said. "I won't let it control me." The old woman pointed a bony finger to the north. "Follow the trail of glowing mushrooms," she said. "They will lead you to the ring's hiding place. But beware, the ring is guarded by a terrible beast. You will have to be very clever and very brave to get past it." John thanked the old woman. He found the trail of glowing mushrooms and followed them deeper into the forest. The really hard part of his quest was still ahead of him. John followed the glowing mushrooms deeper into the forest. They led him to the entrance of a dark cave. John heard a loud growl coming from inside the cave. His knees shook and his palms felt sweaty. But he knew he had to go in. Slowly, he stepped into the cave. It was pitch black inside. Water dripped from the rocky ceiling. John walked forward carefully, feeling along the cold walls. The growling got louder and louder. John's heart pounded like a drum. Suddenly, he saw two big yellow eyes glowing in the darkness. They belonged to an enormous bear. The bear roared and stood up on its hind legs. John froze in terror. He knew the bear must be guarding the ring. "I don't want to hurt you," John said, trying to sound calm. "I just need the magic ring." The bear growled and showed its sharp teeth. John looked around, trying to think of a plan. Then he remembered something the old woman had told him. He had to be clever to get past the beast. John reached into his pocket and pulled out a honeycomb he had found in the forest. He tossed it to the bear. The bear sniffed it and started to eat the sweet honey. While it was distracted, John slowly crept around the bear, looking for the ring. In the back of the cave, he saw a small wooden box. His heart leaped. That must be where the ring was hidden. Very carefully, John snuck past the bear and grabbed the box. But when he opened it, the ring was gone. John nearly cried out in despair. Where could it be? Then he saw a glint of gold in the dirt. The ring had fallen out of the box. John snatched it up and turned to run out of the cave. But the bear finished eating the honey. It looked up and roared angrily at John. John ran as fast as he could, clutching the magic ring. The bear chased him, its heavy feet pounding the ground. John dashed out of the cave and back into the forest. He didn't stop running until the growls faded away in the distance. Finally safe, John slowed down and looked at the ring in his hand. It was a simple band of gold, but it seemed to glow with its own inner light. John slipped it on his finger. A surge of energy rushed through his whole body. He started the long walk back to his village, ready to use the ring's magic to defeat the evil wizard. The hardest part of his quest was done. Now he had to be strong enough to only use the ring's power for good.